Hi, I'm Connor Botts at Tricky Fast Studios. In this series, we're going to be taking a look at how to make a game very similar to Flappy Bird using Cat Game Builder. In this video, we're going to add a conductor to our game and complete the bird game object. The first thing we're going to do is add a special type of game object known as a conductor to our scene. You can do this by going to the menu at the top and hitting Cat, New, Services, and Conductor. The conductor is basically a container for your services, and your services are new features that you can add to your cats, such as a local storage service or a localization service for game text. If you go into your conductor and hit the little wheel menu, you can add services. We're going to add a local storage service and a name service to our game. The local storage service will allow us to save and load some of our variables at runtime. The name service makes named targeting in your cats much faster. The name service is completely optional here, but it does make things much faster. We need to add the conductor for the local storage service though, because we need a way to save the high score that we're going to be implementing in the game over state. To configure this, go to the value holder component in your conductor, which was automatically added when you created your conductor. Under the value holder component, change the storage level from none to global. And then you can set the storage key to whatever you want. We'll set ours to Penguin High Score. And then add a new variable underneath the value holder. Specifically an integer variable. Rename this variable to be known as high score. And then check the persist checkbox underneath the component. Now, anytime we play our game and set this high score variable, it should save and load anytime we play or stop the game. Now that we've added our conductor, let's finish up the game over state in our bird. The first thing we can add to our game over state is an action list. Set the action list to be serial. And then we're going to add a few cats underneath this action list to start. The first one is going to be a set UI text action. The next one's going to be an enable state machine action. And then a set targets action. Then another action list. An apply torque action. A set trigger animation parameter action. A delayed action. A set bool animation parameter action. And finally, under triggers, a UI button trigger. These are the basic actions we will need to finish off our game. First, under the set UI text action, we're going to clear our score text. To do this, we're going to set the target to owner. With the set UI text action, we're going to clear the score text that we've been using to track our score the entire game. To do this, go to named, set the name to score text, and that's it. Leaving the body, prefix, and postfix blank will clear the text on the top of the screen. Then, under enable state machine action, set the target to be tagged, set the tag to be obstacles, and leave enabled unchecked. What this cat will do is when we're in the game over state, it'll stop all the obstacles from moving. Next, we're going to take a look at the set targets action. Set targets action is very similar to action list. It only has one extra feature, which allows you to specify a target prior to running the actions underneath the action list. We'll see what this does in a second. We're going to set the new target to be named, and we're going to set it to our conductor. we're going to set the target to the conductor because underneath this action list, we're going to be doing our high score check here. Then, under the cat menu, go to Conditions, Values, and an integer value condition. Just like triggers, when you add new conditions, it'll also automatically add the necessary conditional action on top of it. Then, in the integer value condition, set the target value to be owner and the reference name to be score. And then check the comparison type is greater than, and set the comparison value to be targeted, and then set the reference name to be high score. What this does is this takes our score value that we have stored in our owner, it compares it to the targeted conductor that we set in our set targets action's high score value. And then it checks to see if the score value is greater than the high score value. And then if so, it'll execute an action that's underneath this condition. So in the case that our score is greater than our high score, that means we need to set a new high score. To do that, go into the cat menu, and underneath Actions and Values, add a Set Integer Value action. The target will be our targeted conductor, with the reference name being high score because we want to overwrite that value with our score value, which is on our owner. Then underneath our Set Targets action, we want to do two more things. We want to add two Set UI text actions. Then set the target on one of them to named. You can find the names of these objects under Overlay UI, Game Over panel, Score pane, and then Game Over Score text and Game Over High Score text are the two text objects we're going to be setting our values. So in one of the Set UI text actions, set the name to target to be Game Over Score text. And then under body, change it from value to owner and set the reference name to be score. And then in the prefix field, set that to be score with a capital S and a colon after it. This lets us more easily format our UI with our variables. Then in the other Set UI text action, do the same thing but for the Game Over High Score text and the high score. And that's it for setting the high score. The next thing we need to do is set the metal color, just like in real Flappy Bird. If you go into your scene and double click on the Game Over panel, you'll see that we have an award section with a small circle underneath it. This circle will change color based on what score we got, just like in the original Flappy Bird. To do this, go under the action list we made under Set Targets action, and open up the cat menu and go to the conditional menu. Then under Values, add an integer value comparison. Then check if our score is less than 15. If this is the case, we want to set the color of the metal to bronze, which is the lowest possible color you can get. To do this, go under UI and Set Image Color. Set the target to be named and set the name to be metal. Leave the duration at 0, and under gradient, set both of the colors to be a bronze brown color. And then you can leave the rest of the parameters alone. So now, if we have a score under 15, it'll set the metal color to bronze. But what if we have a score that's greater than 15? For that, we'll need an else action. Along with conditional actions, you also have else actions, which, unlike conditional actions, will run when the condition is not met. To add an else action, add a new action underneath the set image color action. In this case, we're going to add a conditional action, because we're going to be using another condition. And then under the conditional action, to make it an else action, you can do two things. One of which is you can put the word else in the name. Or you can check this little button on the else action component. You will only see this button if you are able to make something an else action. For now, let's just check this button and change this back to conditional action. Then, underneath this conditional action, add a new integer value condition. Once again, check the score, but this time check if it's less than 30. Now, this component will only execute if the score is greater than 15 but less than 30. And in that case, we want to set the color of our metal to be silver. So if you want, copy the last set image color action and just drag it underneath this one. Remember, actions that you want to fire after a condition or a trigger are not childed underneath the condition or trigger, but are next to the condition or trigger. And then the only thing we have to change if you copied and pasted is the color. Change it from bronze to a silver. And then finally, let's duplicate the set image color action once more time and set it to be an else action. Because this else action will only run if our score is greater than 30, and in that case we want to set the color of our metal to be gold. Next, go to the apply torque action. Set the target to be owner, and change the torque amount to be these values. -500, 350, and -1000. Change the force mode from force to velocity change. This isn't technically necessary for the game, but it's a nice little detail that when you're flying through the air and you hit one of the obstacles, it'll spin out of control, just like you actually hit something in the air. Then, under the set trigger animation parameter action, we're going to set the target to be owner and the path to be penguin. And then we're going to set the parameter name to be dead. This will trigger our death animation, from which there is no going back. Next is this delayed action. This delayed action, because it's in a serial action list, will delay the execution of all other actions after it by the duration inside of it, which we're just going to leave at 1 second. We want this here because we want to wait a little bit between when we actually hit one of the obstacles and when the bird finally hits the ground. Otherwise, the game over screen would instantly pop up and it wouldn't look quite right. Then, under the set bool animation parameter action, set the target to be named and the name to be overlay UI. change the parameter name to raise it, and the value to true. This will play the animation that raises up our game over screen for us. Finally, under this triggered action, we have a UI button trigger. The button we're looking for is underneath Game Over panel, OK button. When we hit the OK button, we want to play a UI sound, fade the screen to black, and then reload the scene so the player can start again. So the first thing we're going to add is a serial action list. And under that serial action list, a play sound action, a fade screen action, and finally, a load scene action. Underneath the play sound action, set the target to be named and the name to be UI click. Make sure you also check keep playing after stop for this one as well. Then underneath fade screen action, we're going to set the fade type to be out, the fade color to be black, the duration 1 second, and any curve you wish. And finally, for the load scene action, we're going to type in current where it says scene name or index, leave the mode on single, and allow activation checked. For the scene name or index field, you can put just a scene name or index like Flappy Penguin. However, there are also some handy macros, such as current, next, and previous, which let you load the current scene, the next scene, or the previous scene, respectively. And with that, we should be able to test our game in its current state. There are no obstacles, so we won't be able to gain any points. But we can hit the boundaries and die, and we should be able to see that our score and high score both get set in the game over menu. Let's take a look. Now, in that demo, your high score shouldn't have read 5, it should have read 0, 0. However, because I changed my high score manually in the inspector, like you can do, I was able to save my high score to be 5 and reload it between scenes. You should now have the bird game object done in this Flappy Bird clone. In this video, we went over conductors and services, conditional actions and else actions, and loading scenes. I hope you found this video informative and useful. For more information on CAT and how it can help you prototype and build games faster, please visit trickyfast.com/cat. My name is Connor Botts with Tricky Fast Studios, and thanks for watching.